This is CBC Vancouver News.
My stomach dropped. In the moment, it felt like all of it was for nothing.
Tonight on CBC Vancouver News, a former championship wrestler shares her shock at what happened after filing a sex assault claim against her coach. Also,
this is just another chapter in that dark history.
The green light to go ahead on a controversial Chinatown building proposal. And the Sea to Sky Highway shut down as of the afternoon as a fast-moving brush fire sparks in West Vancouver. Good evening, I'm Zahra Premji. Thanks for joining us. Dan is on assignment tonight. A former teen athlete from BC is speaking out tonight about the complaint she filed, claiming her wrestling coach sexually assaulted her when she was 17. In an exclusive interview with CBC News, she tells Rihanna Schmunk why she's shocked at the outcome and scared for other athletes.
It's hard for Madison Payette to look back at her time in wrestling.
I feel like for me, there's just been such a negative tone now to wrestling.
She says she was sexually assaulted by her coach, Aso Polani, 10 years ago when she was 17. Last year, she complained to governing bodies, hoping he'd be banned for life. Instead, an independent BC disciplinary panel suspended him for 3 years, half of which is already over.
My stomach dropped. In the moment, it felt like all of it was for nothing. My question was, how many people have to be sexually assaulted for him to be banned for life?
Polani denies the allegations and is appealing the decision. He is not facing any criminal charges in the matter and will be free to work with minors again in 2025. Payette says her experience affected her into adulthood.
You know, at the time, you don't realize the impact it's going to have on the rest of your life until you finally hit an age where you realize like how wrong it really is, and you know it probably did affect my mental health.
The BC Wrestling Association updated its discipline and complaints policy after Payette's case so that sexual mistreatment toward a minor moving forward will carry a presumptive sanction of a permanent ban. In a statement to CBC News, it says, "We firmly believe that we have a duty to ensure all athletes have a safe environment in which to compete and are committed to improving any existing safe sport initiatives." In recent years, scandals within hockey, gymnastics, and soccer have put pressure on governments to take action. A parliamentary committee has heard from athletes and advocates demanding an immediate judicial inquiry into abuse in Canadian sport and cases like Payette's.
This is a classic example of how the sport system deals with abuse complaints. And it's so emblematic of how broken our system is and just how re-traumatizing these processes are for survivors.
The BC Wrestling Association says it can't comment on the length of Polani's suspension because the panel was entirely independent. Rihanna Schmunk, CBC News, Vancouver.
To another story that may be upsetting as well, BC First Nations leaders are calling for the resignation of the Minister for Children and Family Development after a horrific case of child abuse and torture. As Mira Baines reports, the case involves starvation and the eventual death of a young First Nation boy.
Premier David Eby responded to the calls for the Minister of Children and Family Development to resign. The case involved an 11-year-old First Nation boy and his 8-year-old sister, who were tortured, starved, and abused. A man and woman pleaded guilty to aggravated assault and manslaughter that led to the boy's death from a beating, according to court documents.
They deserve everything that the court gave them and so much more.
A judge sentenced the couple to 10 years in jail.
Beyond the conduct, the reprehensible conduct of these individuals, the system failed these kids as well. Our social workers were supposed to be checking on them. Our social workers were supposed to be ensuring their safety. And something went horrifically wrong here.
He supports a review and investigation. The last visit the Ministry of Children and Family Development made to the Indigenous couple's home was 7 months before the child died following a beating. Grand Chief Stuart Phillip, president of the Union of BC Indian Chiefs, said in a statement today, "This was not an isolated incident and it was entirely preventable. I am greatly disappointed to see that MCFD has not demonstrated any sincere steps towards accountability and prevention at a broader level." The case was heard in Chilliwack Provincial Court earlier this month. Police found evidence at the home, including 16,000 videos depicting months of abuse from 2020 to 2021. The province's child and youth advocate says her office will look at where the failings were in the system and also how the pandemic affected the case.
This time next year, we will have a full investigation and a public report done with recommendations.
First Nations leaders want the government to overhaul the foster care system. Minister Mitzi Dean apologized to the family and children involved and says her ministry will cooperate with the probe. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
A fast-moving brush fire has had crews trying to work quickly since this afternoon and had Highway 99 north and southbound at Horseshoe Bay completely closed.
There was some kind of a delay on the highway as I was driving northbound towards Squamish, and I could see the smoke, and I thought, uh-oh, there's something going on, so I detoured down into Horseshoe Bay.
Because I don't think many people can get to the ferries.
Yeah, it seems like traffic's been stopped both ways, so we're kind of emptying out in there.
West Vancouver Fire and Rescue were joined by water bombers trying to spray the scene down. They say the fire is closer to White Lake and it's still not clear what caused it. And the Horseshoe Bay Junction remains closed as of 20 minutes ago. Well, in the northeastern part of the province, lightning storms over the weekend have had wildfire crews on alert. More than 10,000 strikes have hit the region. More than 100 wildfires are still active in the province, with most of them in the Prince George Fire Centre. The largest of them remains the Donny Creek Blaze. It has now charged more than 5,700 square kilometres of forest. While recent rain has helped things a bit, Environment Canada says above average temperatures and more lightning is forecast for the first half of this week, along with very dry conditions. Well, today's deadline day for people living in a controversial highway settlement in Abbotsford. As Joel Ballard reports, the handful of encampment residents have been offered housing, but some say it's not enough.
Trish has lived in this trailer at the encampment for the last year, but today she's packing up her belongings.
Well, we don't really have much choice.
The province set a deadline for residents to move out. About 9 people still live here. It was up to 30 at its height. Dubbed by the mayor and the local police as a place of violence, with police responding to 1,500 calls in 2022 and another 600 in 2023.
Criminal code offenses that we've been engaged with on this site range from assault with weapons, serious firearms have been pulled out of this location here, both loaded imitation ones. We've removed axes as well as swords from this encampment.
The province says there is shelter space available for anyone who wants it.
When we do have to make that decision to close an encampment, having adequate spaces for people is our priority as a province, and that is certainly the case in Abbotsford.
But Trish says shelters aren't adequate alternatives. Sometimes cramped shared spaces, limited storage options for residents' belongings, and there are safety concerns. Trish recently secured a spot.
Already my stuff has been stolen, my purse. I've been there a week and I've had $2,000 go missing.
Local advocacy groups have called on the province to halt the decampments, calling for more dignified housing options.
In a lot of cases, the shelter or housing that's being offered doesn't actually meet the needs of the person. So, for example, if they have a disability or if they have a partner, then they may not actually, that shelter that they're being offered may not actually be relevant to them, in which case it's not meaningful as an offer of shelter.
Trish will try out the shelter, but she doesn't know how long it will last. What's really needed, she says, is for the province to invest in more affordable and private housing options.
Each one of you guys out there, I don't care who you are, what job you have or whatever else, you're all just one step from being right here too. And it's not that hard to lose.
The province says residents can take an extra day to clear out, with cleanup set to begin on Wednesday. Once cleared, the province plans to build a 50-bed temporary shelter on this site. Joel Ballard, CBC News, Abbotsford.
BC's police watchdog is looking into shots fired between officers and suspected impaired driver early this morning in West Vancouver. Officers say there was an exchange of gunfire with the male driver who was hit by a police vehicle. He was taken to hospital with injuries. This all happened on Highway 1 off-ramp at 15th Street just before 3 a.m. and caused traffic tie-ups throughout the morning as the investigation continued. Well, a controversial building proposal in Chinatown has gotten the final okay from the City of Vancouver today. The proposed condos at 105 Kiefer Street have been in the works for a decade, being hit with the lawsuit and vocal opposition. Our Liam Britton was at City Hall for the decision earlier and brings us the latest.
Dozens of people were here for the meeting, with 105 Kiefer, a 9-story condo building, given the green light to go ahead. It was rejected by council in a former makeup of this board in years past, but the developer, BD, won a lawsuit, forcing the board to take a second look, and that second look has paid off with the project's approval. For opponents, their objections are based on this tower being part of a changing, gentrifying Chinatown. They say the condos being built at 105 won't be affordable and will lead to more expensive housing. And they also say it doesn't fit in with the cultural qualities of the neighborhood, and they're devastated by today's approval.
We condemn the board's decision today. I think today marks a singularly appalling moment in the Vancouver's long history as a city that continue to prioritize elite developer interest and continue to prioritize profit over people.
And worth noting, a number of groups like the Chinatown BIA do support this project. BD, for their part, said in a statement that, quote, the approval is an important and positive step forward for the City of Vancouver's efforts to revitalize Chinatown. We look forward to collaborating with community partners as we move forward with the project. No word on when work will begin on the development. Liam Britton, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, a heavily used bridge in Merritt is going to be replaced after being destroyed in BC's major flooding event a year and a half ago. The province is funding the project, which is expected to start next summer. The Middlesboro Bridge partially collapsed when the Coldwater River overflowed its banks during the atmospheric river in November 2021. The span connects the city's downtown with the Colettville neighborhood. Now, the new design will be more resilient to future flooding events. Well, in other news, 4 new animal rescue shelters will be built around BC as organizations struggle to handle the influx of abandoned, neglected and abused pets. The province will spend $12 million on the pet rescue centers in Vancouver, Duncan, Prince George and Fort St. John.
One of the things that's always close to my heart is our animal protection work. And when education and when investment fails, sometimes we do have to seize animals. And without having specialized centers for these animals to spend time, we wouldn't be able to do the life-saving work that we do.
The BC SPCA says it will either replace or upgrade current facilities in the communities that are closed or outdated. In Vancouver, the money will be used to build a new animal center, vet hospital, and education outreach center. Well, if you're a big fan of the Juno Award rock band, well, they're called Nickelback, of course you know them. There's some good news for you.
When this is how you remind me of what I really am. This is how you remind me.
Nickelback will be inducted into the BC Entertainment Hall of Fame on Wednesday. The Vancouver-based act originally got their start in Alberta as a cover band, but released their debut album as Nickelback in 1996. Now the band will get a star on the Granville Street Star Walk and will be part of the more than 300 previous inductees who have been recognized for their contribution to the province's entertainment industry. Well, the BC NDP comfortably held its 2 seats in by-elections over the weekend, one in Vancouver Mount Pleasant and the other in Langford Juan Fuca on Vancouver Island. Now, one political analyst says the results prove the former BC Liberals, now BC United Party, has its work cut out.
Perhaps BC United needs to do more work reintroducing themselves under their new name to voters, or perhaps more ominously for the party, it suggests that voters are not convinced of the wisdom of the new name change, and that they are looking for another place to vote when they are looking for an alternative to the BC NDP.
Preliminary results show BC United saw its share of Langford Juan Fuca vote drop by more than 6 percentage points since 2020. That's out of about 51,000 registered Vancouver Island voters. Only around 26% cast ballots. When asked about the poor showing by the BC United, EBR Premier said the NDP isn't focused on what the other parties are doing.
I think that if we stay focused on the core priorities of British Columbians, we will do well in elections. But if we get sidetracked into partisan politics concerns, then we're going to lose track, and British Columbians will rightly wonder if their priorities are ours.
EB is quashing speculation about an early election, saying he'll be sticking with the fixed election date. Well, there's nothing like a mid-afternoon nap, and new research says napping more may actually keep your brain young. More on that after the break. Thanks so much for sticking with us during our commercial-free live stream. A new Punjabi Canadian sitcom is all about family, love, and laughter. Our Big Punjabi Family puts Abbotsford and Canadian talent in the spotlight. Beneat Brach spoke to the lead writer and actor about the comedy.
Big Punjabi Family is a new sitcom following a multi-generational family living in Abbotsford. From Vancouver to Abbotsford. Therapist Zahra and her family are forced to move in with her Punjabi in-laws after they lose all their money in a bad investment scheme.
We have Lena Monroe, who's the writer of the show. Love, laughter, chaos, all under one family roof. What do you want people to take away from this show?
People to take more empathy and kindness. But what you're going to see in this show is a lot of love, despite the fact that they all live together. And I think we need to model kind and loving families for younger generations. It's something pretty special that South Asian families do live together. That's changing now. Maybe it doesn't have to change.
She says the show is unique, using both Punjabi and English languages.
Are you mad?
Of course not. The moment your language dies, your culture kind of dies, doesn't it? This one is like English, Canadian mockumentary. There's none of those.
Yeah.
This is the first one of its kind in all of North America, and I have seen multiple generations sit in the same room and enjoy the show. It made my heart so happy.
The show was mostly shot in Saskatchewan, but includes footage of Abbotsford.
Now we have Arshdeep Purba, who plays the mom in this show. I noticed that a lot of the roles here were Punjabi female-driven roles. What did that mean for you?
I feel like women in our culture, in our families, are not credited enough. So to be able to see how women-oriented this show was, I felt like was a gift to the moms.
Yeah, I know a lot of our families are first generation or multi-generational homes. So why did you think it was important for you to be part of this show?
I'm also first gen, and just seeing how my parents go about their life when they immigrated here, they have different morals, different values, different beliefs. And I think the show is also just showing the reality of living in a household with different generations, and how you can come to a level of understanding if you just come with communication and love.
I cannot wait to watch that. I feel like I can relate as a first generation living in what I would like to say our big smiley household. So same thing, I want to see that come on the big screen too. Stick around, we'll have a lot more coming up for you after a quick break. Well, most of us have always known that we should get at least 7 or 8 hours of sleep. But according to a new study out today, getting less may not be as harmful as expected. Another study published last week found that regular napping slows the rate at which our brains shrink, meaning a lower risk of dementia and better overall brain health. These findings give us more to think about around sleep science and reiterate the fact that there is no one-size-fits-all method of approaching sleep habits. Now, Dr. Melissa Lem explains what was found in this new research to bring about the change.
A lot of us probably know at least one person who belongs to the unicorn group that this new study zeroed in on. People who get less sleep than the recommended 7 to 8 hours per night, but are still full of energy. So there were 740 people in this study whose nightly sleeps were under 6 hours, but had no complaints about their sleep quality or their daytime sleepiness. And the interesting thing is that not only did these people have bigger brain volumes than the less than 6 hour sleepers who did report fatigue, but their brains were also bigger than people who got 7 to 8 hours per night. So this is a pretty significant finding because in general, the bigger your brain, the healthier it is. Other research has actually shown more brain shrinkage in people with cognitive problems and neurological diseases related to sleep issues.
And over to Alberta now, where more than 100 Alberta physicians have signed an open letter. It's condemning the hiring and then unhiring of Dr. Dina Hinshaw. The former Chief Medical Officer of Health was set to start working on a key Indigenous health team earlier this month. And as the CBC reported last week, after that was rescinded, a prominent Indigenous physician and the team's senior medical director resigned. Jennifer Lee has the latest.
The letter calls the decision to pull Hinshaw and the subsequent resignation of Dr. Esther Tailfeathers a grave concern. Edmonton physician Dr. Nija Bakshi is one of the co-authors.
She was seemingly removed without any consultation to Dr. Tailfeathers or anybody else in the Indigenous Wellness Corps. And so this to us signals some either government overreach or oversight that was not done in consultations with the stakeholders that made the decision in the first place.
The letter addressed to the Premier and the official administrator for AHS, Dr. John Cowell, calls for an investigation into the ethics of the decision. Bakshi says it smacks of political interference and Albertans deserve clear answers about why Hinshaw was removed and why Tailfeathers in her leadership role wasn't consulted.
We already know that we're in a situation where our Indigenous population is already often discriminated against in healthcare, often is marginalized and does not have access to the care that they require. And now we've disrupted a stable system that was able to help this group of patients.
The physicians are also calling for a public apology from Dr. John Cowell. Jennifer Lee, CBC News, Calgary.
Now, CBC News has asked AHS for a response. It said it had nothing further to add. All right, here's a live shot of, well, the Georgia Viaduct. Amy will have your full forecast coming up next.
Sunday night in the town pump, and people are doing here what they do in clubs from Paris to Prince George. Drink in one hand, cigarette in the other. But this is the end of an era. When the taps are turned off for the day, the ashtrays will be picked up for the last time. The town pump will become Canada's first non-smoking club.
Actually, I think it's kind of a drag, but at the same time, I know an awful lot of non-smokers, so it'll probably be okay. I'll probably still come.
I think it's ridiculous. I figure, you know, if we live in society with bunches of other people, we're going to eventually have to learn how to accept them.
Even smokers?
Even smokers, sure.
Well, the crowd is mixed. Club employees have made up their minds.
Are you going to light that thing? Not tonight. Maybe tomorrow night.
We're not inside?
No, not inside. Tickets, please, gentlemen.
Do you smoke? Do you smoke?
No, I don't. Actually, I'm a non-smoker.
So what's the cigar all about?
It's kind of a universal protest tonight.
No, I don't smoke cigars, but this is a protest. I smoke cigarettes.
And what do you think of...
Very unhappy, and I think it's a stupid change, and I have to go get the phone. It's my job.
All right. Other club owners say Dan McLean is crazy. He says it will work. After all, 3/4 of all British Columbians are non-smokers.
The trend is for non-smoking, and we have to change with the times.
The changing times mean more than just a no-smoking policy. The music's going to be changed too, from bands that play their original tunes to bands that play more popular music.
Monday night, and we're back. And as you can see, the signs are up. And I can't help but think back to times gone by when bars used to post signs telling people that they couldn't bring their guns in or their knives, that they couldn't swear, spit, or gamble. Well, the signs of the times are a-changing. And we can go in and see how things are going as soon as I get rid of this thing.
Still looks like the same place at first, but now you can read the no smoking signs without having to peer through the thick blue haze that hangs over other clubs.
It's kind of nice to be able to see the band without a big haze in the background and be able to breathe. It's nice.
I think it's the best thing happened to Vancouver since Expo.
I don't mind going to a bar when it's smoky, but I prefer non-smoking.
While customers are enthusiastic about the idea, there just aren't many of them here. Most of the tables are empty. Still, it is a Monday night, and Dan McLean says it will pick up.
I'm not nervous at all.
Not all his employees are so sure. This person decided to call it quits.
I've worked here for 2 years, but I can't support something that I don't believe in, and I don't believe in the changes that they've made here.
Change is never easy, but Dan McLean remains convinced there are enough people out there who will support his smoke-free club, and he's willing to take the risk. Wayne Williams, CBC News, Vancouver.
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back. Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. CBC Vancouver is the premier media partner of the 2023 Surrey Fusion Festival, July 22nd and 23rd. Visit the festive cultural pavilions, enjoy free live music and family activities. And the 13th annual Indian Summer Festival takes place July 6th to the 16th. The festival's powerful 10-event lineup speaks to the theme of interdependence. Tickets at indiansummerfest.ca.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
All right, well, I'm always wondering what's happening in the world of weather, especially during this season. So, Amy Bell, let me know what's happening in this world, because I don't want any more sun.
Oh, well then, you are going to be sorely disappointed by the forecast, because we have a lot of sun for our region. The South Coast just blanketed in this sunshine and very warm temperatures right through into the weekend. So certainly not ideal. We already saw that fire today in West Vancouver, and we are going to be dealing, unfortunately, with lightning strikes for much of the province tomorrow. We'll see this unstable air mass come over. We already saw a lot sort of below the line today and in Edmonton and Calgary, but what we'll see tomorrow is really right from the very northern part of the province all the way down through the Caribou and into the Kootenays and the Okanagan. We'll see this risk of lightning strikes. So certainly we'll have to keep an eye on things as temperatures are very hot and things are very, very dry. So not ideal conditions over the next 24 hours in many areas. For parts of Vancouver Island, though, you will be seeing lots of sunshine. Other parts, such as Tofino, locked in by this real drizzly air mass, so it'll be a bit wet. But you can see sort of late day tomorrow is when we start to see all those pockets of precipitation. But mainly what we're going to be keeping an eye on, of course, are the risk for lightning strikes. We'll see some in the afternoon up in Whistler. For the most part, though, over here in the South Coast, we're looking at sunshine and those temperatures in the mid-20s. Obviously hotter as you get further away from the water. And we're looking at very unstable air, as I mentioned, all throughout the Kootenays tomorrow. And then for us, for the 5-day forecast, we're going to see sunshine carrying through right into the weekend with those temperatures in the mid to high 20s.
All right, so I guess you're giving me a little drizzle. I'll take that. Thanks, Amy.
Go over to Vancouver Island, sure.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. Well, a kayaker near Australia's famed Bondi Beach was treated to a rare sight recently.
Wowee.
Epic drone footage captured this weekend shows the paddler with one of the largest mammals on Earth, a humpback whale. The curious creature cruised alongside the kayak in a playful swim through the pristine blue Australian waters near Sydney. The whale is one of 50,000 expected in a migration known as the Humpback Highway from Antarctica. Absolutely gorgeous. Well, that's your late news for this Monday evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Before you let that head hit the pillow, take one last scroll with that one eye open through what's making headlines on our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition that starts at 5:30 tomorrow morning. Stay cool and have a good night.